My career is built a lot around basically saying yes. From middle school on, if someone asks, hey, does someone want a solo in this song? The hand is up. And that goes all the way through to today, where if someone shoots me a text, hey, would you want to play this? Yeah. I want to go out there and give it, my all and do things maybe that I'm not comfortable with. My name is Jim Piela. I'm a saxophone player, educator, performer, improviser, and composer. My first memory of the saxophone is finding my mom's saxophone in her basement. She had this really beautiful silver Selmer from the 20s. When I got to high school, I started getting a little bit more serious. My high school had 3 jazz bands. The top jazz band had this music program that was known nationally. I auditioned and I thought I was hot stuff as a freshman, and I didn't make it into the 3rd band. I was a substitute for the 3rd band. I didn't know that, so I just showed up for rehearsal, and they were like, oh yeah, we have space for you. We can make this work. I grew up in Wisconsin. When I first came to New York, I was a senior in high school. We came out to New York to do the Essentially Ellington program with Wynton Marsalis and Lincoln Center. We actually placed in the competition. We got to play with Wynton Marsalis on stage that evening, and we were all really psyched about it. And I asked my band director, hey, can I play a solo? And that's kind of where I was as a high schooler, was like no fear. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And I'm standing up next to Wynton, and I improvise a chorus. At one point, Wynton kind of says under his breath, ain't nothing wrong with that. That was such a moment in my career of like, hey, I can do this. If I were going to give one piece of advice to any student, is you have to jump in, be a little nervous, be a little afraid. It's okay. You have to start somewhere. So I eventually made my way out to New York to give it a shot. When I first got here, I was still very, very green. Even though I've been playing professionally for a while and teaching professionally, the level and the standard of musicality and musicianship is very high in New York. There's a lot of extremely talented, unbelievable musicians in this city. In some ways, you have to talk yourself up a little bit. You have to be your own hype man, I guess, right? I was never really comfortable with that. I used to think it was a Midwest thing. We like to shut up and do the work and let the work speak for itself. It was a real challenge, and I made a couple of really good connections in that first year. But, for most of it, it was like trying to take lessons, trying to talk to grad school programs that I wasn't able to get into, and I got no feedback from, why isn't my playing where it needs to be? I ended up leaving for a little bit to work on cruise ships, which was an interesting time in my life. I remember specifically being on stage and just being like, okay, if this is the rest of my career, maybe we should find something else to do. There's nothing quite like having an existential crisis on stage. It's very scary. I learned a lot from that experience, and the idea of having the balance between playing my music, playing things that I'm really passionate about, playing creative music, playing improvised music, that's so important to me, because otherwise you get into this kind of headspace of like, yeah, I do not want to be here anymore. It's that, and then the balance between yourself, what you know and what you're passionate about, and what other people that you might be trying to learn from are passionate about and love. I ended up coming back here to work with specifically Dave Pietro at NYU. I think Dave was a huge influence for me. Not only that, he's an amazing player, an amazing musician, but his work ethic and the way that he approaches music. At that point, I'd been playing professionally for a number of years, but my whole thing was like, I want to learn. I want to know new stuff. And I came in with that attitude of like, okay, like taking his comments very seriously and just, okay, cool, I can work on that. Like, how do I work on that? And asking those follow-up questions. He said to me at one point, he was very impressed by that ability to do that and not letting the ego get in the way. Even though, yeah, it hurts sometimes to hear that what you're doing isn't really happening yet. Having him say that to me and seeing that as a kind of a bigger theme in my life of like, okay, like, can I continue to be this perpetual student, never letting that ego get too big? That definitely had a huge effect on me. There's nothing like diving into something that you think you know and then getting to page 3 of whatever book and being like, oh man, like there's so much more to learn here. I try to talk to my students about that. Is like, hey, listen, we're on the same path. I'm just further down the path. That's it. right? I feel the same as my students do when it comes to learning stuff. So thinking about hard work and practice and dedication, you have to think about the day-to-day. You have to think about the habit you create for yourself. So when people say, so-and-so works really, really hard, to me what that is, this person knows how to manage their time really well. And they know how to set themselves up for success. When I'm teaching, I really try to meet students where they are and try to figure out what they need. Some students need that, here's a bunch of technique material, here's how to get around the instrument. But some students need that discussion about okay, here's how we practice. Here's how we set up our schedule. I work with a lot of students who might not end up being saxophone players. I personally think that's great. I think that music is for everybody. And whether you want to spend 8 hours a day playing the instrument or whether you want to just enjoy the music when you have a chance to as a hobbyist. I think it's really important as a teacher to bring folks in and say, hey, I found this really cool thing. Let me show it to you. So this is my saxophone. I got this alto when I was in high school. So I've been playing the same horn for 21 years now. I guess it's vintage at this point, but I did buy this thing brand new. There are a couple of custom elements in here, including some resonators that are different. But yeah, you can see where and how I hold this instrument based on the wear and tear of it, which I think is very cool. Inspiration can come from a lot of different places for me. Obviously, listening to music and talking to other musicians can be huge. Taking lessons from musicians that I really love. But sometimes I'm inspired by the kind of smallest things, right? I like watching people who are super passionate about stuff do the thing they're super passionate about. That's what originally drew me to the instrument, which is listening to my favorite players do what they do and then kind of understanding it's kind of like my voice. It's a speaking voice. You can put on a speaking voice or you can create do an accent or whatever, but you come back to this kind of home base of who you are and how you naturally speak. And that's what I've found on the saxophone. Everybody's speaking voice is a little bit different on saxophone. How it's played and how it's kind of conceived allows for that kind of difference in different musicians. Similar to a speaking voice, I don't think about it, right? Because it feels very natural when I play. When everything's happening right, there's nothing in between the ideas and the music that comes out. So when I improvise, that those ideas are hopefully, ideally, in a perfect world, flowing without any kind of stop or restraint or thought about, I am this sort of musician. I play in this sort of way. It's what comes out and there's no filter, if that makes sense. Improvisation is a really important part of how I communicate with the instrument. And what I focus on a lot is how can I make this language even more comfortable today? If I'm remembered as a guy who worked really hard, I think the saying is put your money where your mouth is. Put my work ethic before my mouth, I guess. Having that kind of perpetual student mentality is what I hope people see when they see, the work and the energy and the effort that I put in.